the spark of believing. Every school has a classroom people whisper about. At Oakwood Elementary, that classroom was 4B. It wasn't the biggest room in the school. It wasn't the loudest. It wasn't even the messiest, although one desk had been holding a mysterious broken crayon since last October, and nobody was brave enough to ask why. Classroom 4B was simply the room where children had stopped expecting good things from themselves. They weren't bad children. They weren't lazy children. They weren't children who didn't care. They were children who had heard, "Try harder," so many times that trying had started to feel like losing slowly. By the end of the previous school year, hands no longer went up. Eyes stayed low, answers stayed trapped behind nervous lips, and when papers were handed back, most of the students turned them over before they even looked. Sometimes the heaviest thing a child carries isn't a backpack. So when August arrived, Classroom 4B looked ready for a fresh start. The pencils were sharp, the books were stacked, the bulletin boards were clean. Sunlight spilled across the floor like it was trying very hard to be cheerful. But the room still felt quiet, too quiet, as if it had forgotten how to believe. Then, on the first morning of school, Penelope Grant opened the door. She did not burst in with a whistle. She did not clap her hands and demand excitement. She did not write a spelling test on the board before anyone had taken a breath. She simply stepped inside, looked around, and noticed. That was Penelope's gift. She noticed the girl who arranged every pencil by color before sitting down. She noticed the boy who drew tiny dragons in the corner of his notebook, then covered them with his sleeve. She noticed the student who pushed in someone else's chair when nobody was watching. She noticed the child who whispered, "You can sit here," to someone standing alone. Most people saw a struggling class. Penelope saw clues. Not clues about what was wrong, clues about what was waiting to be discovered. After the bell rang, Penelope stood at the front of the room and smiled gently. Not the kind of smile that says, "Everything is perfect." The kind that says, "I'm not afraid of where we're starting." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then a boy in the back row looked down at his desk and mumbled, "Just so you know, we're the dumb class." The room froze. A few students stared at him. A few stared harder at their desks, as if the wood grain had suddenly become fascinating. Penelope did not gasp. She did not scold him. She walked to the board, picked up a marker, and wrote 2 small words. "Not yet." The students stared. Penelope capped the marker and said that those might be the 2 most powerful words in the classroom. Can't read it? Not yet. Don't understand it? Not yet. Afraid to try? Not yet. Then Penelope did something nobody expected. She took down the old achievement chart, then the behavior chart, then the test countdown calendar, then the poster that said, "Success means being the best," which had never made anyone in 4B feel very successful at all. The children watched in silence. One student whispered, "Is she allowed to do that?" Another whispered, "I don't know, but I like it." When the last poster came down, Penelope hung one large, empty board on the wall. Across the top, she wrote, "Wall of Winds." The students waited. Nothing happened. No fireworks. No music. No magical trumpet from the cafeteria. Although at Oakwood Elementary, you never fully ruled that out. Finally, a girl named Emma raised her hand halfway, then lowered it, then raised it again. "What counts as a win?" she asked. Penelope smiled. "That," she said, "was the first one." Emma blinked. "Asking a question? Asking a question when you were nervous?" Penelope said. "That is absolutely a win. And that was how the Wall of Winds began, not with a gold star, not with a perfect score, but with one small card that said, 'Emma asked a brave question.' It would have been a lovely beginning. Except Principal Sterling saw the board before lunch. Principal Sterling was not a cruel man. He did not dislike children. In fact, he cared about them very much. But he cared in straight lines. Charts, scores, benchmarks, percentages, results. To Principal Sterling, a classroom was successful when the numbers said it was successful. And Classroom 4B's numbers did not say that. He stood in the doorway, looking at the Wall of Winds, which at that point had exactly one card and a slightly crooked border. "Miss Grant," he said, "may I speak with you?" In the hallway, Principal Sterling kept his voice low. "These students are behind," he said. "I know," Penelope replied. "They need structure." "I agree. They need practice. They will have it. They need measurable improvement." Penelope looked through the small window in the classroom door. Inside, Emma was quietly pointing to her card, while another student smiled at it. Then Penelope said, "Before they can believe in the lesson, they need to believe in the learner." Principal Sterling did not smile. He looked at his clipboard. 3 weeks, he said. "If I don't see improvement, Classroom 4B returns to the standard test prep schedule." And just like that, the clock began ticking. Most people would have rushed back into the room with extra worksheets. Penelope brought in index cards. The next morning, she taught fractions with paper pizzas. She taught vocabulary with mystery boxes. She taught writing by asking students to describe a dragon who had accidentally joined the school choir. That last lesson got everyone's attention, especially when someone suggested the dragon should sing very badly but with confidence. For the first time in a long time, Classroom 4B laughed. Not loudly, not all at once, but enough. Then came the first discovery moment. Penelope solved a math problem on the board and got the answer wrong. The room went silent. The students stared at the mistake the way people stare at a raccoon in a library. Finally, the boy from the back row raised one finger, not his whole hand, just one cautious finger. "Miss Grant," he said, "I think you forgot to carry the 1." Penelope turned to the board. She gasped dramatically. Then she whispered, "The 1 has been abandoned." A few students giggled. She circled the mistake and wrote above it, "Discovery moment." The class stared again. Penelope explained that mistakes were not proof that someone was bad at learning. Mistakes were proof that learning had left footprints. That changed things. Slowly. A student who had been afraid to read out loud read one sentence. A student who said she couldn't draw made the best crooked rocket ship anyone had ever seen. A boy who thought he was bad at math realized he could explain patterns better than anyone else in the room. The wall of wins grew. It did not fill. It grew. At first, the cards were plain. I read one page. I asked for help. I tried again. Then, drawings appeared. Then, borders. Then, stickers. Then, folded paper stars. One child added a tiny comic strip about surviving long division. Another wrote, "Today, I made someone laugh, but on purpose." Penelope never told them simply to believe in themselves. She did something better. She noticed their strengths. She told Emma that her careful questions helped everyone think deeper. She told Marcus that his dragon drawings showed imagination and detail. She told Lily that organizing supplies showed leadership. She told Ben that helping someone before being asked was a quiet kind of courage. And each time a child discovered something good inside themselves, the room seemed a little brighter. Still, Principal Sterling watched. He watched the wall of wins grow. He watched the students laugh during lessons. He watched them make mistakes without shrinking. And he worried, because joy was wonderful, but the test was still coming. On the morning of the practice assessment, the old fear returned. The pencils felt heavier. The room felt smaller. One student whispered, "What if we mess up?" For a moment, no one answered. Then the boy from the back row, the same boy who had once called them the dumb class, looked across the table and said, "Not yet." The room changed. Not because the test became easy, it didn't. Not because every answer was correct, it wasn't. But because the children no longer looked like they were waiting to fail. They looked like they were thinking, trying, checking, starting over, helping themselves breathe. When the scores came back, they had improved. Some a little, some a lot. Not enough to make Principal Sterling cheer. Principals like Sterling did not usually cheer. At most, they approved firmly. He studied the numbers. Penelope waited. The class waited. Even the broken crayon in the desk seemed tense. Finally, Principal Sterling said, "This is progress." The children smiled. Then he added, "But not enough." The smiles faded. For one painful second, Classroom 4B felt as if it might become the old room again. The room nobody wanted. The room where hands stayed down. The room where trying felt dangerous. Principal Sterling looked at the wall of wins. He looked at the test scores. Then he looked at the students. Emma was helping Marcus understand a missed problem. Lily was organizing extra pencils for anyone who needed one. Ben was patting a classmate on the shoulder. And the boy from the back row was explaining a math pattern to 3 other students with the careful patience of someone who knew what it felt like to be confused. Principal Sterling lowered his clipboard. "Did they always help each other like this?" he asked. Penelope shook her head. "No," she said softly. "They learned they had something worth sharing." Principal Sterling looked again at the wall of wins. He read the cards one by one. I read out loud. I asked a question. I helped a friend. I tried after I wanted to quit. I made a mistake and survived. Then he stopped at one card written in small, careful handwriting. Today I wasn't scared to raise my hand. For a long while, Principal Sterling said nothing. Then he picked up a blank card. The students watched as he wrote slowly. When he finished, he pinned his card to the wall of wins. It said, "Today I learned confidence comes before achievement." Nobody clapped at first. They were too surprised. Then Emma started. Then Marcus. Then Lily. Then the whole class. Principal Sterling stood very straight, as if applause were not listed in his daily schedule and he wasn't sure where to file it. But he smiled, just a little. And sometimes a little smile from someone like Principal Sterling is practically a parade. By the end of the 3rd week, Classroom 4B was not perfect. No real classroom is. There were still hard days, still wrong answers, still pencil shavings on the floor, and one glue stick that disappeared under suspicious circumstances. But the room was no longer quiet in the old way. It hummed with thinking. It buzzed with questions. It rustled with paper and laughter and second chances. The wall of wins had grown into a living garden of color. Cards overlapped drawings, drawings overlapped stars, stars surrounded notes. And every inch of it seemed to say the same thing. We are becoming. On the last Friday of August, Penelope found the boy from the back row standing beside the wall of wins. He was helping a younger student tape up a card. The younger student looked worried. "What if it's not good enough?" he asked. The boy smiled. Not a big smile, just enough. Then he said, "It is for today." The younger student nodded and pressed the card onto the wall. Penelope watched from across the room. She did not interrupt. She did not turn it into a lesson. Some moments are too beautiful to explain. She simply stood there, quietly grateful, as Classroom 4B kept growing. Because the first day of school does not really begin when the bell rings. It begins when a child feels brave enough to try. It begins when a mistake becomes a discovery. It begins when someone finally sees the strength that was there all along. And sometimes, in a cozy classroom with beanbag chairs, student artwork, one very stubborn broken crayon, and a wall of wins that would not stop growing. All it takes is one teacher, one kind word, and one little spark of believing.
Cut.